why people from nothing see the world differently than people who come from something. First of all, I think that there's a huge common misconception that happens among wealthy people, people who come from wealth, people who have been wealthy for a very long time. And that misconception that they have about people who come from nothing is that we think the world has been unfair to us or something, right? But people who come from nothing do not look at the world in terms of fair and unfair. We view the world as conditional. We view the world in a way that makes it so that everything that we earn at the end of the day feels temporary. It doesn't feel like it's going to be around for a long time. If we go and we work and get a job, for instance, and we get a check, we don't open up that check and look at that check and go, wow, my life has grown. I have I'm putting another $500 in my bank account. This is my money. It's going to stack up, whatever. We don't look at it like this money is long-term. We look at it like, putting gas in a car, that this is just going to evaporate over time. It's just a bridge to get us by. Everything is temporary. Whereas people who come from money, I think, at least this has been my perception, is that they tend to feel like they own things and that owning things is permanent. And that's because they grew up in an environment where that was true. They grew up in an environment where their family owned their home and they've always had it. And if they get a car, it's theirs. And they're always going to have it till they decide they don't want it anymore. And the convenience of knowing that people are going to, that safety net is going to always be there and people are always going to be there to bail you out, helps when it comes to ownership. When you come from nothing, everything just feels like even anything you gain is just going to be gone or could be gone tomorrow. You could get evicted. You could lose your home. You could lose your job and not be able to pay your rent this month. And then you could lose, your car could break down. And then now you don't have the money to fix your car. It's, $400 to fix the engine or replace tires or whatever it is. And you don't have the money. So now you don't have a car to drive. Everything you have could be just taken away from you. And this is proof, obviously, that your environment shapes your perception. I think we all pretty much know that. But it's amazing the way that it affects your worldview. Because everything becomes about survival, surviving in the moment. That is your default thought process, is surviving. That's it. It's not like a conscious thing. Somebody who's born with a lot of money doesn't feel like they need to survive. They're often more looking at the world from a perspective of how can I obtain more? How can I turn what I have into more, or so on and so forth? People who are born and raised with nothing or come from nothing or struggle every day to have everything they have, it's a constant act of survival from moment to moment. There's never any comfortability. And a lot of times when you grow up with nothing, the instability of knowing that money could stop coming in, you could lose your place, you could lose your car, it could be repoed, you could lose your job, everything could be gone. It creates inconsistency and instability and chaos on such a constant level that it rewires how you make decisions because there's no margins on your decision making, especially if you grow up with unstable parents, which most people who grow up with nothing, a lot of times we have unstable parents, whether they're addicted to drugs or alcohol, or they have mental issues from abuse that they endured as a kid, or maybe they're just, they behave like children. They've never grown up. They've never held themselves accountable. Whatever the case may be, if you grow up in a household with a hectic family and there's no margins on your lifestyle, there's no structure, there's no obvious path, everything's just chaos. That also affects how you view the world because you start to realize the importance that when you do develop guardrails, when you find a way to put guardrails on your life, you will do anything to make sure that they're there. And anytime, this is especially if you become successful and you came from nothing, if anyone you knew from your past who you knew brings that swirling chaos with them, it's a threat to your guardrails. And so your defense mechanism goes up. Doesn't mean you don't love your friends who you grew up with, or the people that you came, the people that you knew from where you came from. You still do, but you're so afraid. If that swirling chaos is around them still, comes around you and knocks the guardrails off your life, you're going to go right back to that insanity you grew up in. And it becomes a real fear. And this is all a part of the survival mentality that when you come from nothing, you develop. To risk, everyone knows the phrase, the more you risk, the more the larger the reward, right? The bigger the risk, the greater the reward, or whatever the phrase is. That is an advantage for people who come from money and wealth. And the reason why is because people who come from cozy environments, people who had silver spoons in their mouth or trust funds, or they lived in rich, well-to-do homes their whole life, that safety net, that comfort zone makes them want to take risks. It makes them want to. They're like, man, my life is too comfortable. I want to go and muck it up. I want to go take risks. I want to jump out of a plane without a parachute. And that is the mentality of someone who comes from comfortability and so on and so forth. But people who come from nothing, our worldview is totally different. Risk is the scariest shit ever. It's horrifying because we're aware of the fact that there is no safety net and there will be nobody that will help us. We take risks, we fall, that ground is hard. And it's far scarier. And failure has real consequences. It's like we can't just experiment with ideas. We can't just go, I want to try this and see what happens. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, let me try that and see what happens. There's no room for experimentation because if we don't get our asses up and go and do what we need to do to get money to pay our bills to survive today, we could lose everything. There is no time or place for risk. And this is why the poor stay poor. Because they can't afford to take those risks. And so because they can't afford to take them, they never get those large rewards that come with them. Now, me being somebody who came from utterly nothing, below the bottom, many of you know my story. For those who don't, I came from utter squalor, slept in homeless shelters, slept in the streets, ate in soup kitchens, lived in crack houses. My mother was a drug addict, the whole 9 yards, criminal in and out of jail. It's unbelievable that I was willing to take the risks that I took that led to some of the rewards that I had. Because on a mathematical level, people who come from nothing just don't take them. it becomes so hard to take them. And I don't blame anyone who comes from nothing for that fear, because it's a real fear. Another worldview of people that come from nothing is trust is totally achieved differently. And what I mean by that is that, like, we know that trust is transactional. People who come from nothing, we know that trust is transactional. This is the reason why so many young kids that grow up in well-to-do homes wind up in very dangerous situations. They go to parties, they take drugs they shouldn't have, they take too many of them, they get violated because they were vulnerable in situations they shouldn't have been in. A lot of that comes from when you grow up in a well-to-do environment, you tend to just trust people and develop a level of trust with people that people who come from nothing, we don't do. We don't do. We know that promises don't really lead to outcomes. And we know that we can't trust in our institutions, for instance, the government, college education, an institution, religious institutions, because they're filled with inconsistency and hypocrisy. And people that come from nothing, when we see inconsistency and hypocrisy, we don't put any faith in it. We see right through it. Which is why promising us stuff, promising us incentives doesn't really do anything. Because incentives don't really matter to us. Because you could tell us, oh, you'll get this, you'll get that. We don't believe you. Because historically, it has always been true for people that come from nothing that we're let down repeatedly. And so a lot of times your incentives don't win our trust. What does are words. And a lot of times validation. And that's not good. We become easily susceptible to words, but not words in the short term. Words over the long term. If you tell us what we want to hear long enough, you win us over. That's unfortunate, but that's the weakness of people that come from where I come from. The weakness of people that get up and have nothing and work hard every day to barely get by is that we are susceptible to words over the long term. And stability is never assumed. When there's a moment of calmness or we feel stable for a moment, we don't think, oh, let's celebrate. We arrived. We're here. We made it to a place where we can be comfortable. Because the moment we celebrate, the moment we pick up that champagne glass to celebrate the fact that we made any kind of progress in life, we have this fear that a truck is going to come smashing through the kitchen, right through the table that's holding the champagne. We do not feel for a moment like we can celebrate our progress, because at any moment we feel like we have to we have to guard our gains. We have to protect our progress on a daily level. It's like a video game. We level up. We don't get to go, yeah, we leveled up. No, we have to go, oh my God, we leveled up. We have to work extra hard and really, really go the distance, really do everything that we can to make sure that nothing happens to this little progress that we've gained. And that's the difference between people that come from nothing and people that come from something. Not that one is good or one is bad, just different worldviews. Just different worldviews. We're different. We're built differently, cut from different cloths. And another good example is of that is wealthy neighborhoods. The reason why people who come from something respect authority is because they get to reap the benefits of authority. Their neighborhood is safe. They can walk down the street and they don't run into any problems. They don't have drug addicts, crackheads, or unsafe people, meandering about, moving around at night, doing shady shit behind their house, or they don't have those problems. People who grew up with nothing grow up in neighborhoods that authority is not protecting. People, criminal element and negative people who are out to do bad things, they go right through these ginormous cracks, right into the neighborhoods that people who have nothing live in. So when we look at authority, whether it's police or FBI or government, law in general, judges, the justice system, we're not looking at that like, oh, that's what makes us feel safe. Because when you have nothing and you live in neighborhoods that are in squalor, you don't feel safe regardless of their authority. It's not protecting you. So you start to look at people who have power and authority as suspect. Well, why do you have so much power and authority? Clearly it isn't to protect me. Is it to harm me? Is it to have control over me? Is it to take advantage of me? And these are the thoughts that enter the mind of people that come from nothing. It becomes more difficult for us to respect authority because the rules are always applied but never explained, and we never seem to benefit from the rules. We only seem to be controlled by them or harmed by them. And that's why we don't respect. Respect is conditional. We don't respect authority. It's not automatic. It's very conditional who we respect. And if you were to take anybody that came from nothing and ask them who or what they respect, it's going to be different every time based on your upbringing, your perception. Because at the end of the day, you don't just automatically get respect because you're in an authoritative position or you have power. And I believe that that's the difference between the mindset of somebody who comes from nothing and people who come from comfortability and coziness. Trust funds, wealthy, whatever. Or even people who have had wealth for so long that they forgot what it's like to have nothing. I refer to that as rarefied air. They've been breathing rarefied air. They've been so high up in the sky from all their success that where the air is thin, that they've forgotten. They've forgotten how ordinary people down below think. The other thing about having nothing is that time is so much more valuable to people who have nothing or come from nothing. Time is fragile. Every little second you spend doing something, delays feel like risk. Oh, I'll do that in 3 weeks. People who come from nothing, man, 3 weeks is an eternity. Because we know in 3 weeks we may not have a job. In 3 weeks, our car might break down. In 3 weeks, we might get evicted. We might lose our place to live. And anything can happen in 3 weeks because over and over and over and over and over, we have seen it time and time again. We have seen our lives completely be thrown into upheaval over random events over and over in just a couple of weeks. So everything becomes urgent. Everything becomes, we need to do this now. We got to do this now. One of the things I can admit about myself is I'm a very impatient person. It's probably one of my biggest downsides. But the reason why I'm an impatient person is because of my upbringing and the way that I grew up on the street with nothing. It made a sense of urgency so important because I'm fully aware that I can die tomorrow. I could die tonight. I could die in 1 hour. And so everything has to be, let's do it now, right now, right now, right now, right now. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't people that are born with money or come from something that may not also have a sense of urgency. I'm sure there are plenty who do. I'm just talking about a default way of thinking, not a learned way of thinking, a default way of thinking. And what I'm saying is people who come from nothing are on default have an anxiety level sense of urgency with everything. The term someday, oh, we'll do it someday, that sounds like a fairy tale. It's fictional. It doesn't exist. There is no someday. It's imaginable. I'm sorry, it's imaginative. It's not even real. It's not tangible. Tomorrow is not even tangible, let alone someday. And I'm not trying to make it seem like people who come from nothing are better than other people. I just feel like people who come from nothing are not fully and correctly understood. And as somebody who came from nothing, that built up a business that has a valuation of, it's a multi-million-dollar business at this point. As somebody who come from nothing to that, I can honestly say, especially with the circles that I run in, that we're misunderstood, that our worldviews are misunderstood. There is no fair and unfair. We really just look at things as conditional. Relationships as transactional. You know, we know that you can be trusted if we know that there's something that you expect from us, and we know that you're looking forward to that, whatever it is, then you can be trusted. Because we know you're relying on us for some reason. And that's one of the reasons why feeling needed by people becomes our kryptonite. Because feeling needed by people makes us feel like we can trust them because they need us. Because trust is transactional. And as long as we're willing to trade whatever they need us for, we know they can be trusted. They're never going to betray us. But that's not a healthy way to trust. And that's not a healthy way to build relationships. But it is very, very commonly the worldview of people that come from nothing. Anyway, I'm Thommy Kane. Like and subscribe the video. I look forward to making many more of these. And that's it. I'm out.